Hi, welcome back to another edition of Mosquito Bites and Mysteries, Florida's unknown history, where we're taking a look at history, but not the known pieces of history, the more bizarre, strange, hidden, secret histories that sometimes we've missed in the books that teach us about the history of the day, particularly as it's unfolded here in Florida. Florida's always been an unusual place. And believe it or not, you might not be aware that there were some Coke millionaires here in the state of Florida. Never heard their story? Let me tell you. Mark Monroe was a man who liked the taste of Coca-Cola. And certainly he wasn't alone in that. Over more than a century, billions of people have agreed with him. My favorite soft drink is Coca-Cola. And so I agree with Mr. Monroe. Mark Monroe's taste buds turned at least 67 people, however, who were farmers by trade, into millionaires. Coke millionaires. Not Coke, the illegal drug, but seriously, Coca-Cola. Here's how that piece of history unfolds. Mark Monroe was a banker in Quincy, small town up in the Florida Panhandle near the Georgia border. The Quincy State Bank was the place tobacco farmers put their money, and for 30 years they trusted Monroe with their money. He served on the board with W.C. Bradley, a Georgia cotton broker, who had purchased the Coca-Cola Company in 1919 for $25 million. They're sitting at a board meeting in 1922, and Bradley shared a Coke with Monroe, asked him to taste it, and told him of the company's prospects. It was that simple. He gave him a Coke to drink. He shared with him he bought a company. And he shared that he thought that company was going to do well. When Monroe came back from that meeting to Quincy, he recommended something radical to the local tobacco farmers, something that they had never heard of. And it was simply that they would take their money and buy stock in this young, fledgling company. And they purchased shares, buying so much that for years, the company would send a messenger to pick up the Gadsden County proxies when the Coke board held its annual meeting. And so Coke was making sure that they got there and they could vote at the annual meeting. And it's difficult to be exact because even history gets a little fuzzy at this point. But a single share purchased in 1922 for $80 would be nearly $10,000 today, would now be worth more than $350,000, plus hundreds of thousands of dollars in dividends along the way. To put it another way, if a farmer bought one share of stock and simply reinvested the dividends, so the one share for $80, and just reinvested the dividends today, it would be worth more than, and this is one share of stock, worth more than $10 million today, that one share of stock. It's estimated that 67 of the farmers became known as the Coca-Cola Millionaires. And most moved away from Quincy, Florida. Because why? Quincy's a small town up in the Panhandle. There's nothing in Quincy. However, interestingly enough, there was another benefit. Because as Coke continued to expand as a company, and it had all the developers living there in Quincy, as far as farmers who were putting their money into it, they decided, why don't we put a bottling plant in Quincy? And so Quincy, Florida became the home of one of the first Coca-Cola bottling plants in Florida, built there in Quincy. When Monroe died, by the way, he left his children Coke stock. The stock that he had still had left, that he hadn't cashed in, that he purchased from Coca-Cola. Each one of the kids got $1 million in Coca-Cola stock when he passed away. He did extremely well, very well, as a businessman and banker in Quincy, but maybe his greatest move, his boldest move, was buying stock in Coca-Cola. Sometimes, you never know, but a good thought might only be a good thought. We all have good thoughts. each and every day of your life. I hope that you have a good thought. But sometimes it's more than a good thought. It could be a God thought. I've often said that I would rather have one God thought than 1,000 good thoughts. I'm not going to say that the Coca-Cola thought was a God thought. I'm not going to go that far. But it was pretty impactful for the people that bought into it. It was pretty impactful for the family. It was pretty impactful for a small town and a community. It was pretty impactful for generations that would follow after him. That idea that this would be a good move and take a chance on a company when it was just starting is the stuff that is the stuff of American business dreams and those good humor kind of stories when amazing things happen and people are blessed and the benefits are great. But in your life, take time to make and understand the power of choices and the power of good decisions. And make them wisely. And as you make those good decisions and as you make those choices wisely, understand that you might impact the lives of others. And who knows? You might impact a life in such a way that the legacy will live on long after you're gone. You might make them Coca-Cola millionaires. That is this edition of Mosquito Bites, Mystery, Unknown Florida History. I look forward to joining you next time.